الله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Tonight, inshallah, I'm going to leave the topic that we've been talking about until now, until the day after tomorrow, inshallah. We've been talking about the story of Isa alayhi salam in the Quran. We've gone through quite a bit of the verses. There are about 2 or 3 more episodes left. So I'll try to, inshallah, get that done on Thursday and Friday, so we can finish this whole topic and have accomplished something, come to know something about the Quran, one topic, one story from the Quran. Tonight, I want to focus on Ashura. Try to help us facilitate the process of preparing ourselves for the day that's just begun. Our days begin at sunset of the previous day. There are 2 things I want to do to facilitate that. One is to prepare for the a'ma, the rites of Ashura tomorrow morning. The most important of those rites is the ziyarat of Ashura, ziyarat Ashura. I want to spend maybe 10 minutes going through some important highlights from the ziyarah and to explain some of the key concepts so that we can go into actually reciting it with a greater understanding. So it's not simply a ritual, but inshallah it'll have some meaning behind it as well. And then after that, I'm going to go through a relatively lengthy narration. So far, the Masa'ir, the quote-unquote Masa'ir, the narrations of stories have been very, very brief, sometimes 5 minutes and less. Tonight, I want to spend more time with that. Just going through, reading to you accounts, speeches, back and forth between Imam Hussein and his companions and everyone, kind of to get a feel for what was happening on the night of Ashura, the eve of Ashura. Ziyarat Ashura is it's a perfect embodiment of tawalli and tabarri. If we learn these 2 words, they'll serve us well as we're reading the ziyarah. I explained it in brief the other day after the prayer, but I'll go into a little bit more depth now. Tawalli and tabarri, they're essential concepts to our Islamic development. The meaning of these 2 words, tawalli, comes from wilaya. The literal meaning of yaliya or waliya yali is to follow somebody. Right? If one person comes after another, one page comes after another, we use the word waliya. Tawalli has that same idea of connection, of being very, very close. 2 things that follow, like one thing that follows another, it's very close to the other thing. To do tawalli is to bring yourself closer to somebody. Tabarri, on the other hand, is to cut ties. Bor means to cut something. Tabarri means to cut ties with somebody. So they're opposites. One's to connect and one's to cut ties. Now these are used to refer to this alignment process that we want to constantly be going through in our lives to align ourselves perfectly with truth and perfectly against everything that's other than truth. وَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. And there's either truth or falsehood. It's a dichotomy in Islam. So we want to constantly do everything that we can to align our thinking, our emotions, our speech, our actions, everything with Allah and all that's godly. And to consciously align ourselves against everything that's against that. Okay, that's what tawalli and tabarri are about. So we're going to hear different derivatives of that word throughout this ziyarah. Inni atabarra'u. Right? Atabarra'u comes from the same word as tabarri. Right? We have tawalli, we have muwalat. It's also from the same root as tawalli. So we'll have a couple of different derivatives of the same word being repeated over and over again. We're constantly repeating that. I align myself with you and I align myself against them. I want to get closer to you by getting further from them. I want to get closer to Allah by getting closer to you. And it's just all these permutations of getting closer to Allah and getting further and further away from His enemies. And this is really the Ziyarah Ashura is an embodiment, a perfect embodiment of this practice. And this is why it's such a key ziyarah for us. The ziyarah indicating something we recite as a visitation. And ziyarah means to visit somebody. Right? It's as though we're visiting Imam Hussein. We would be much luckier if we were actually there at his grave. Even luckier if we'd been by his side. Right? But whatever we can do to be with him, by reciting the ziyarah and having our heart and soul at least with him, if not our body, right? That's good. A couple of key vocabulary words that we're going to see besides tawalli and tabarri. One is the word wit. Al-witr al-mawtur. Wit, we just read it in Surah Al-Fajr as well. Wa-shaf'i wal-watr. Watr and witr, they both mean the same thing. They both indicate solitude, being singular. Right? Watr means odd or one or singular, whereas shaf means two or even. And somebody who's a wit or who's mawtur is somebody who's been left alone. He's been left standing alone because everyone else has been wiped out. Right, so you have one survivor from a tragedy, his family, his spouse, everyone's wiped out, and the only person left is himself. That person is called a witr or motur. They both mean the same. Witr or motur, it's an emphatic construction in Arabic. Right, so we call Imam Hussein witr or motur because of this. So he's left standing after all of his companions are killed, and then all the Ahlul Bayt are also killed. The male members, at least, of the Ahlul Bayt are killed as well. Another word that we repeat a couple of times is tha'ar. Tha'ar or tha'ar. You can pronounce it either way. Tha'ar means blood. And it indicates the blood that's spilled by a murder, for instance, assassination, that needs to be avenged. And so the person who's in charge of or responsible for avenging the death of someone else, avenging the blood, we use the same word. I want to avenge the blood of my father, for instance. Right? So that concept is communicated by the word tha'ar. If Imam Hussein is Tha'rullah, we say, Ya Tha'rullah, it's because Allah is the one who's going to take revenge for his death. Right? By punishing his murderers. By sending Imam Mahdi alayhi salam and then having him destroy anyone who is in any way associated with Yazid and Muawiyah and their way of thinking all the way throughout history. Right? He's going to come and destroy them, that whole line of thinking, that whole way of thinking. Right? So he's one of the manifestations of Allah being Al-Muntaqim, the one who takes revenge, who's the avenger for injustices that have been carried out against his people, especially his prophets and imams. Right? So he's Tha'ar Allah, and Wabna Tha'ar. He's also the son of Allah's, this person Allah is going to avenge, Imam Ali alayhi salam. All of the imams are really Tha'ar Allah. The last important concept that I want to mention is the concept of la'an. Part of Ziyarat Ashura, part of the formula for Ziyarat Ashura is reading the Ziyarah. Part of it is going through this process of repeating this curse on all the enemies of Imam Hussein. In fact, all the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, period. Repeating that 100 times, and then countering that with 100 times of reading salam on Imam Hussein and everyone associated with him. It's an integral part of Ziyarat Ashura. It's not complete without doing these 100 la'ans and 100 salams. The 100 salams, most people don't have a problem with, and it doesn't pose much of a challenge to understand why we say salam to Imam Hussein and his Ahlul Bayt and everyone. The curses sometimes cause doubts and difficulty in people's minds. Why are we focused so much on cursing? And this ziyarah is full of curses on all these characters, like Muawiyah and Yazid and Ibn Ziyad is the same as Ibn Marjana. They're both mentioned. Ibn Marjana was the prostitute who was his mother, right? And so he's Ibn Marjana. That was a name that he hated, and that's why it's a name that Zaynab keeps on. Whenever she calls him Ibn Marjana because she knows that he hates that name, and it's a reminder of his origin and really his character. He's from dirt and he is dirt. His father was from dirt, and the whole family is dirt. So why do we say this curse? Or why is this part of the ziyarah? Why is it important? It's really important for the same reason why tawalli and tabarri are important.